Yeah, trendsetter, whoa, league of my own, it don't get better. No, read what I wrote, I'm a bestseller. Yeah, reach for my goals, hit it dead center, hit it dead center. Bullseye, hit it the most, is no misses. Something like fish in a barrel, it's no different. Blindfold on me, I still got the most vision.
Hello, and welcome to another episode of Carnivore Evolution. Today we're very excited to introduce our guest, Coach Bronson Dant, who is an author, a fitness coach, and an innovator in the field of ketogenic fitness. Welcome, Coach Bronson.
Hey, well, thanks for having me, Victoria. I appreciate it. We've kind of
Oh,
known each other virtually for a while. It's the first time we actually get to do something together.
yes, virtually. It's been a few years. I first encountered you through your book, The Ultimate Ketogenic Fitness Book.
Hmm.
I think it was published in 2022, and you joined my small Facebook group, and we were so happy to have you on there. But prior to that, you wrote a book about the carnivore diet called The Meat Life, which was really an explanation and introduction to doing carnivore right, and
Hmm.
have since published recently another book called Body Confident, which is a nutritional and cerebral approach to fitness, a holistic
Ooh.
approach. And I'm very excited to hear too about the F2 method that you've created,
Hmm.
and hopefully will explain more to us about. We know you're going for a graduate degree, a doctoral degree in health science,
Hmm.
and you have free training available on an app called Train Heroic and a Discord community. Well, please, we'd like to ask you to please tell us about first your carnivore journey and how you approached it,
Okay.
and we'll pick it up from there. And then you can tell us about the development of your fitness programs.
All the different things. Well, thanks for having me again. I appreciate it. Gosh, where to even start? Carnivore journey. That we go back to 2018 when I actually started. I did not start initially. Well, so it's like a lot of people I think find in the carnivore space is we start for one reason and then we realize there's a bunch of other things going on. And we kind of go, okay, what is this all about? And that's when we really start digging into what's going on and trying to understand and learn from what's happening. So I started out as a trial just to see if there was something I could do with my diet to help with my urgent bowels and IBS. So that's really, I was having issues. I had gone from a very poor diet over the years to a much healthier, mostly whole foods based paleo kind of diet, and still couldn't figure out what was going on. And was like, let's just try this as an elimination. It was more like, hey, let's just try this as like a 30-day elimination thing and see what happens. And it was very quick that I realized, hey, things are getting better. It wasn't really, though, until I decided to go longer than 30 days. I was about 90 days in, and I really started realizing, hey, wait a second, all of the things that the IBS and urgent bowels had been impacting my life with weren't really a thing anymore, right? I was finding that I was doing things out of habit. I was doing things like before I would take a car ride, go to the bathroom. As soon as we got wherever we were going, go to the bathroom. Like I was doing all of these things in preparation for the urgency or a potential accident. And I realized that after about 90 days, I wasn't feeling that urgency. I wasn't feeling that pressure of something was going to happen. And then I started experimenting with, and it's really interesting to use that word. It was experimenting with living a different way. What happens if I don't go to the bathroom before I get in the car? What happens if I don't worry about going to the bathroom before I get on a plane, when I get on a plane, when I land from a plane, when I get to the hotel? Like in one process of taking a trip, there were 7 different stops to the bathroom, mostly just in case, right? And I realized all those just in cases weren't anything I needed to worry about. So that was a huge impact just in itself. I tell people, I didn't have 200 pounds to lose, but the weight of the stress and anxiety that I had from my bowels controlling every decision that I made every day, having that lifted from my life, I feel is just as impactful as losing 200 pounds, right? The stress, the anxiety, the limitations, and the depression that comes from just never feeling like you can do what you want to do because you never know when you're going to crap your pants, right? It's just, as an adult in my 30s and 40s, it was like, why is this something that I have to worry about? This is crazy, you know? But I've been dealing with it for so long, I didn't know if there was any way out. And I found a way out, and it was the carnivore diet. So that's how I got started. And I did it cold turkey. I went literally, took a few weeks of kind of researching what it was all about as much as I could find, which is one of the reasons why I wrote that first book, because there wasn't much out there. And on May 1st, 2018, I said, okay, I'm done eating plants. And I haven't looked back ever since.
Wow. Wow, that's pretty compelling. Yeah. I'm thinking that your book, the first book, The Meat Life, was was published back in 2018.
Yep.
And there really was so little available at that
There
time.
was. And even that is, there's stuff in there. Like I look at, there's one chapter in that book that I didn't know what I was doing. I wasn't, I mean, I knew a little bit about nutrition then, but it was the stuff that I'd always been taught. So there was everything that I applied or talked about in that book was based off of the concepts and methods that, as I understood them at the time, before I really understood what a ketogenic diet was. I didn't even know what keto was when I started. I went from paleo to carnivore. I didn't know there was something in between. It took me years to figure that out. And, even at that time, I remember in 2018, I went to Paleo FX in Austin and was introduced to exogenous ketones the first time. And I basically told the guy to stop talking to me. He was a snake oil salesman. I was like, I don't want to listen to this. You don't know. This is ridiculous. It's hokey. This doesn't make any sense. What are these things that supposedly they exist? I completely wrote the whole thing off. I had no idea what it was about. And then lo and behold, now I learn about it and go, oh, there is something to these things. So yeah, I mean, I had a very, it wasn't a rough process, but I went through the process that a lot of people go through of having to unlearn, re-examine why I thought the things I thought and how they actually applied. And the carnivore diet answered a lot of questions that I had. I started looking at things like, hey, wait a second. When the idea of net carbs versus total carbs was first introduced to me, it blew my mind. I had never heard of the concept that fiber as a carb shouldn't count for calories. And it just totally blew my mind. And then as I understood what that concept was, now I'm at a point now where anything having to do with calories, I just tell people to ignore it. So that's a different conversation. But just the idea that there could be a different impact of what we eat on our body based on what the source is. Then I started learning about protein having a different impact on the body than fat, and carbs having a different impact. And things started making more sense when I started looking at the impact of the food instead of bundling everything into just one energy concept. When I started looking at how does food affect function as opposed to just looking at food as a fuel source, everything started falling into place. And all the questions I had about, well, if we're doing this, then how come this? But if we do that, then it's different for this, but then that doesn't make sense because those two things are competing logical frameworks, right? It just, all the stuff started coming together. So I fell in love with understanding these things, understanding how I'm an engineer by trade. I've been an IT engineer for 30 years. So I'm very much analytical. I like taking things apart, figuring out how they work, and then being able to explain that to people. Most of my career in IT has been taking very technical systems and then explaining it to the people using them in a way that makes sense. So I feel like I'm really lucky in the space here because I get to do that. I can understand scientific concepts and learn about things at a level that most people don't have the time to get to. But then I can take those and say, okay, well, that just means this. Like, we don't need to know that stuff. All you need to know, it's like a clock. I love the clock analogy. I don't know if you've ever heard that, is we often get stuck in having conversations about the inside of how the clock works. And we could argue all day whether the size of the gears are one size is better than another, or if spring this or this kind of a spring works better, or if the little hand should move at this speed compared, like all of the different dynamics of the inner workings of a clock. We could have conversations all day long. But what really matters? Does the clock work, and can you tell time? That's all that matters. And many people are stuck trying to figure out all the inside stuff. And we just need to take a step back and say, hey, wait a second, what does this actually mean for me in my life about what I'm trying to do and how I can get where I'm going? Right? So getting away from mechanisms and focusing on what are the concepts of how this works, so that I can apply it to my life. And that's kind of where I've gotten with the whole thing. That was a little loop-de-loop, but that's where I'm at.
Well, certainly it led to your development of applying the ketogenic system to fitness. And when we first encountered each other, my interest was the carnivore diet for adults over age 40.
Mm-hmm.
And you had, in your first book, incorporated the ultimate guide to ketogenic fitness. You'd incorporated you're helping your mother with her fitness program, and I believe she and I are the same age.
Yeah,
I'll be
she's 70,
74.
71 now.
71, yeah, well, I'll be
Yep.
74 in December. But I was so fascinated by that just grabbed my attention immediately. And could you expound a little bit more about how that evolved? Um,
Well, yeah,
and
that was her being a very supportive mother. Basically, I opened a CrossFit gym, and she, in support of me, was like, "Hey, I'd like to do something to support you having this gym. I know I need to build muscle. I've been diagnosed as osteoporotic, and I know I need to do something. So this is a good time for me to get started." So she worked with me as a personal training client for a while. And then as she got more confident in what she could do, she just joined the gym as a regular member, and she's been doing that ever since. I mean, she started CrossFit. God, that would have been 2015 is when she started, and she's been going ever since. She now, since the pandemic and everything being in lockdown, we built a gym for her in her basement. So she's got everything she needs in her basement, and she does my program. She does one of my programs, and she just does it in her basement a few days a week. But she loves it. She's constantly putting notes in there and talking to me about things that she's doing that she's never done before. She feels like she's getting stronger, and it's a continual progression, and it's been going on for 10 years now. That's crazy. She's been doing it for 10 years.
wow.
She started Carnivore shortly after. So she started working out in 2015. I started Carnivore in 2018. I think she started about a year later. So 2019-ish, she started saying, hey, what is this thing doing? Will it help me improve my muscle? Will it help me with my workouts? Will it help me change? She was a lot like a lot of women. She was more on the skinny fat side. So she's petite. But she was skinny. She didn't look overweight, but she was high on the body fat percentage and low on the lean muscle mass. So her goal has always been to just reverse that and improve the lean muscle mass, right? She's not worried about weight as much. It's more just being functional, having as much functional tissue on her body and strength in her body as possible. So it's awesome.
That is awesome, and it leads me to my next question, which is I know that your work is evidence-based, and you've got a journal article, a peer-reviewed journal
Mm-hmm.
article about the things that you measure to show how your system works
Mm-hmm.
to improve people's physical and mental health.
Yeah.
Can you tell us a bit about your journal article and your study?
Yeah. So that study was something that you're like, hey, I wonder if I can actually do this. Now that I've done it once, it opens the door. I'm working on 3 papers right now. But it was basically a challenge that I was doing that I said, okay, you know what, while we do this challenge, I'm going to collect all the data and then just do a case study to kind of show what can happen when you combined fitness and nutrition, and what is the impact, particularly for women over 40 who are pre and perimenopausal. So we had, I think, 24 women who had all the classic symptoms, right? Um, energy issues, hot flashes, just all the different things that you get with menopause. And over the period, I think it was 12 weeks, over the period of following a regular functional fitness training routine, reducing their carb intake, increasing their fat intake, increasing their protein intake, we saw across the board some significant body composition changes, and those were all great. We saw massive improvements in physical ability. So the percentage of increase in the workouts that were being done. So the strength, the stamina, the endurance, the speed, dramatic increases. We did a test workout at the beginning of the 12 weeks, and then repeated those exact same workouts 12 weeks later. And amazing, absolutely amazing. Not even just in the strength and the speed and the endurance, but in the ability to do more complex movements. So when we talk about exercise, one of the things you may have heard is scaling or progressions, right? If it's hard for me to do a push-up off the floor, then I get on a box, or I do it on the back of a couch, or I do it on the wall, right? How can we make it easier to do, but still challenging enough to help you get better, right? Well, in this 12 weeks, a high percentage of the ladies across the board had at least one exercise that they may have done less reps of the exercise, but they did a more complex or advanced version after the 12 weeks. So the progression wasn't just in speed and strength and endurance. It was also in the ability to perform more complex exercises, which to me is even more important, right? Because our ability to move our body, our ability to control our joints, our ability to have high levels of coordination and balance, that's where longevity and sustainability and freedom of lifestyle as we get older comes from, because those are the things that go when we get older, right? We lose coordination, we lose balance. So being able to improve those things with regular fitness and regular good nutrition was super impactful. And then for those ladies, right, because we were doing it in a demographic of women who were dealing with menopausal issues, the across the board response was an improvement in everything. Better sleep, more frequent sleep, longer sleep, better quality, better energy, less hot flashes, better satiety, lower stress overall, like all of the things that you could think of that cause quality of life issues dealing with menopause, all of them were reduced, right? I don't know if anybody that they all completely went away, but they were all helped. They all felt better about going through the process after the 12 weeks. So it was a great study. I had a lot of fun doing it.
That is just fantastic work on your part, that you've just opened the floodgates to that. And I think this is just the tip of the iceberg for you,
Yeah.
that you're really going to take this, especially with your postgraduate studies. It's just going to skyrocket.
Thanks. I
And
appreciate it. I got a lot of things on the list of things to do, so we'll see how it goes.
Well, speaking about quality of life, your most recent book, and also your journal, the companion to the Ultimate Ketogenic Fitness Guide,
Mm-hmm.
deal with a part of fitness that most people don't think about when they think about training. And that's the mental approach, the mindset. And could you help us understand how you evolved into that, how you developed that concept, and take us into the F2 system, which you've created?
Yeah. So the F2 method is a progression of the clinical aspect, the evidence-based aspect of what I do as a coach. So, I mean, unlike a lot of the influencers who are researchers or they're medical doctors who work in a clinical space who don't have the time generally to sit down with people and work through what's going on in their head, right? As a clinical doctor, clinical medical doctor, you see a patient for 10, 15, 20 minutes, you're on to the next patient. You don't have time to listen to their problems and help them figure out what their perceptions of life are, their limiting beliefs, and those types of things. But as a fitness coach who works with people one-on-one 3, 4, 5, 6 days a week who gets to spend an hour at a time. So I'm, on average, when I owned my gym, I was spending anywhere from 3 to 8 hours with individuals every week consistently. You get to know their families, you get to know their kids, you understand all these different things that are going on in their life. And you can tell when someone walks in the door how their mental state is going to affect their workout that day. So you start making connections between what's going on with their nutrition, what's going on with their fitness, what's going on in their head, and how those three interplay. Because the longer you coach, the longer you work with people clinically, the more you realize that the workout plan doesn't matter. The nutrition plan doesn't matter if you're not in the right headspace to do it consistently and to do it the way that it needs to be done. So the most important aspect of your health journey starts in your head. It has nothing to do with the diet you choose, has nothing to do with the workouts that you do. Because you're not going to be consistent. You're always going to be looking for shortcuts. You're not going to understand why you're really doing it. There's so many different things that get in the way of the execution piece, and none of it has anything to do with the plan itself. It's all how you approach the plan. So that's where I kind of really came up with these 3 pillars of health, the 3 pillars of success, and the 3 foundational concepts of the F2 method are mindset first and fitness and nutrition.
Wow. Wow. It's just so innovative and so caring and holistic in your approach. I'm just so pleased to hear this. You mentioned the functional issue. Um, could you help us understand your F2 program and how you, I want to use the word personalize or build to suit an actual physical exercise and movement part of the 3
Yeah.
pillars?
Yeah.
Um,
So the F2 method is not a program. It is a framework. And why I'm really, this goes back again to my engineering roots. Everything we do in IT is based on a framework because there's so much to it. There's so much to all the different things that go into technology that it is impossible to keep up on any one thing and then understand how to integrate that thing with something else if you don't have a map. You got to have a map of how all this stuff works. And health and fitness is very similar. When we talk about mindset, fitness, and nutrition, each of those individually has thousands of moving parts. And the context is the most important piece because without the proper context, you can look at something and have no idea where it actually applies to your life. So the idea of having a framework, it starts with identifying what are you doing and what does the information you're getting have to do with it? So, and this is a trap that many people get into. So when we talk about the process, the F2 method, the F2 method starts with you as the individual. Who are you? What are you doing? Where are you trying to go? Where have you come from? What are the goals that you have and when do you want to get there? Starting asking all those questions. What am I trying to do as a person? Because if I don't know who I am, where I'm trying to go, where I'm coming from, then I have no comparison to weigh against the information that I'm getting. And this is where we find people who are metabolically unhealthy, obese, overweight, dealing with things that they've got 6 or 8 medications. That it's hard for them to walk up and down the stairs. They can't enjoy their life in their living room, much less get outside and do things, right? Those people who are listening to bodybuilders about how to lose weight. That's not how this should work. If your situation is trying to rehabilitate your metabolic function, you should be listening to people who are experts in metabolic function rehabilitation, right? You should be listening to people who have been where you are and have gotten where you want to be. You should be listening to people who have spent years in clinical work, working with people just like you. And instead, we have a society now where if you have the six-pack abs and you have 10,000 followers, 100,000 followers, a million followers, you all of a sudden become an expert and you can talk to everybody. And that's where people get messed up. And one of the biggest things that I've seen since I've been in the keto carnivore space has been people who are keto for 5 years and haven't made any progress. And it's because they're not following the right information, or they're following information that worked for them where they were 5 years ago. It got them to a certain point and they never reevaluated, where am I now and what's the next level look like? What do I need to change to get there? Right? So this framework, the F2 method, is specifically designed to allow an individual to cycle through the seasons of their life and reevaluate every single time they're ready to go to the next level. So you start at the top. Who am I? What am I trying to do? Where have I been? Where do I want to go? And when do I want to get there? Define all of that stuff. Then the next step is, what's the information that I need? What is the mindset challenges that I'm dealing with now? How can I get through those? What are the things? What is the low-hanging fruit? There's a phrase that we have in medicine and health called minimum effective dose. And a lot of us forget about that. We see something and we want to go all in, when really we just need to take one step. Right? So that's a mindset thing. What is the smallest thing that I can do? What's the low-hanging fruit? What's the big rock I can just push over the hill and let it roll down because it's the easy thing that I know I've been avoiding, right? Those types of things. So the framework is really just a way to evaluate where you are, look at the information, and then help you put a plan together to get to the next step without overdoing it. That's the big part, without overdoing it.
Oh, thank you for clarifying all that. I'd like to know if there are any new projects you have on the horizon that you want to tell us about. Open the floodgates. Yeah.
Oh my goodness. So I'm going to be experimenting. I'm actually working on a book right now. It's going to be an ebook. So I'm going to experiment with a new model for books. So I'm working on a book now that is going to be the what I'm calling the Keto Athlete Playbook. It'll be an ebook format that I'll put out, and basically it'll be specifically for athletes. So as I get more into the exercise science world, one of my missions is very quickly becoming educating athletes on the benefits of ketogenic diet for sports performance, and then also helping to, as much as I can, change the scientific literature or establish some new areas of thought in the exercise science community about how we look at ketogenic and fat adapted athletes and evaluate performance with new information that we've gotten over the past 5 years. So I don't know if you're aware, but I thought this was fascinating. I've been doing some research lately and found out, and if you look at all of the ketogenic diet studies that have been published in the last 20 years, okay, about 10,000 of them over the past 20 years. So since, what is that, 20 years, 2005, okay? Over 5,000 of them, almost 6,000 of them have been published in the last 5 years, right? So almost 60% of all of the studies that have been published in the last 20 years have been published in the last 5. So the ketogenic diet, anything that anybody thinks they know about the ketogenic diet, we probably have new information that they haven't heard about yet. So I really, really want to be as much as possible at the front of that and try to say, look, guys, there's new ways to do things. There's new information we have. Let's start rethinking how we examine sports performance in this context. So that's some stuff I'm working on. I have the ebook that's coming out. I don't have a date on that, so please don't hold me to any timeline for that. I'm just working through that as I can. I'm working on 3 papers to publish as well. So I've got a paper I'm working on with the team that's going to address some issues we see in how we test for performance. I've got another paper that's specifically working on identifying the benefits of the ketogenic diet in what I call the cascade effect of performance. There's a lot of misunderstanding when we tell athletes that the ketogenic diet helps performance, or that, you should go keto, it's better, you could do just as much. I think there's a misunderstanding in that communication. The ketogenic diet does not, in most cases that I've been able to find, directly improve sports performance. When it comes to acute instances of performance, a ketogenic diet maintains performance compared to a carb-fueled athlete. So you can do the exact same work being ketogenic, being fat adapted. Where the benefits come in are the cascade of, over time, reduced inflammation, reduced oxidative stress, improved anabolic environment, right? All of the things that allow for recovery to be faster, the ability to do more volume in your training, to be more intense in your training, and to not reach overtraining or overreaching as quickly. So the benefits come from the long-term continual training as a fat adapted athlete that allows the volume to then improve performance, right? So it's a long-term thing that you see those benefits from. So explaining that nuance to people and saying, look, and it also impacts the sustainability. So the cool thing about that now is we can talk to athletes and we can say, look, you're not going to get any better performance immediately directly after being fat adapted. What you are going to get is better training sessions, faster recovery, less risk of injury, and you'll be able to perform your sport for longer before you have to stop. And then the cool part is, when you do have to stop, when your sporting career is over, you can now live your quality of life and maintain that, and not be one of those athletes who can't walk up a set of stairs because they destroyed their body while they played their sport. That's where the benefit of ketogenic diets come into sport performance. So that's really a big piece of where I'm going in that aspect right now.
Wow, that is just wonderful. I keep using the word trailblazer, but you certainly are. And your work is so significant and so important and so valuable
Thank you.
to humanity. It's just wonderful. And I, I'm just so pleased and honored that you've brought your work to us to
Oh,
explain it to
absolutely.
us.
I love talking I love sharing. If there's any time you want to do it again, just let me know.
Well, I certainly will. We may catch up with you sometime soon. Thank you so much for sharing with us, Coach Bronson.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me, Victoria.
Very nice of you. Okay. Take care. Bye-bye.